Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean and today I'm doing a short review of The Man in the High Castle by Philip Dick. So you'll have to excuse me for not knowing who Philip Dick is because I'm not a big fan of science fiction or fantasy, but reading off the top 1000 list, he has several books off it and he has written several books that have spawned numerous shows that I'm aware of, like Minority Report, Total Recall, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I won't bother talking about the reboot. Blade Runner, which I have not seen, and of course The Man in the High Castle, which is an Amazon series. So I have, of course, seen promotional materials for the TV show, and it looked pretty cool because it's like alternate history where the Axis won World War II. So that is pretty cool. That seems like a fertile ground for stories. I still did not really know anything about what the book or TV show is actually about beyond the premise of the Axis winning World War II. So I went into it kind of optimistically. First, knowing that Philip Dick has written so many popular things, Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report, all that, and this. So I thought, okay, I'm excited to give this guy a try. And so as I began to read the book, I was just not really impressed at first, and I kept reading, and I was still not really impressed. It wasn't turning out the way I hoped it would be, because most of the book really is just about like this Jewish jewelry designing con man coming up with like fake reproductions of old American artifacts and trying to sell them to like a dealer who sells them to like the Japanese who rule the west coast of the US. And that's really all that was happening, was just this Jewish con man. And something I kind of didn't like about that is the whole narrative of the Nazis is that the Jews are basically swindlers. And so in this book, the Jews are basically swindlers. They're con men, they're frauds, and they're just making money and ripping people off. That, to me, just seems like it's what the Nazis would want you to believe about Jews, and that's what Philip Dick is basically doing. His Jewish characters are all con men. He also has another character who claims to be like a higher up representative in the Nazi government. He's kind of like this Swedish agent guy. And this agent says to this one person on a plane, basically, this person on this plane, or actually it's a rocket, is like very anti-Jewish. And so this agent is like, you know what? I'm Jewish, and we are actually like, we hold many positions in the Nazi government. I don't know if that guy was actually lying about that, but that again is just like, so Jews are just con men ripping people off, and they have all their fingers in government, managing, overseeing everything, while the Nazi government is exterminating Jews, but Jews are still in charge, is what this guy says. So it just felt like that's your Jewish angle, that's like your Jewish representation, that's how you want to present Jews, is just as con men and secretly involved in government. That just seems like it's more what the Nazis would want you to believe the Jews are doing. It's not like any kind of sympathetic character. It's basically making the Nazis cases for them, like saying, hey, Jews are just swindlers in charge of government and we need to get rid of them. And that's what Philip Dick kind of seems to be almost implying. You have this story of Nazis winning World War II, and instead of having like Jews being like helping people, they're just ripping people off and making money. And yeah. And there's really not too much to say else about the plot, because that's really 80% of the book. I was really not liking it. So I got like halfway through the book and I was just like, dude, I want to quit this book. This is just stupid. This is not turning out at all the way I hoped. And so I vented my frustration on Twitter, and a lot of people on Twitter were like, oh yeah, I love that show, but you got to stick around to the till the end because the end is great. So I was like, well, okay, I'm not too far away. I'm like 150 pages. I could stick it out till then. So I want to see how this book ends because hopefully it just makes it all worthwhile. Well, I did. I read it all the way through to the end. And what are you guys talking about? How the end is so incredible? The end is stupid. I don't want to spoil it because apparently some people like it, but the whole book, the ending was just, the entire book was just basically pointless. There was no good characters I liked. There was no good story I liked. There were kind of a few storylines in it. There was this Jewish guy who is the con man making all this fake jewelry. There's this like jewelry collector guy who's trying to sell the stuff. There's this Japanese, I don't know exactly what he does, but he's some kind of like Japanese representative in the West Coast in San Francisco, I think. And there's also this Swedish agent who only appears like twice. There's the Jewish con man's ex-wife, and she is like reading this book about basically this guy wrote this book that is an alternate history of World War II, and this guy supposedly lives in this castle, this fortified castle, and so he is the titular man in the high castle because he wrote this book that basically says, what if the Axis lost World War II? What if the Allies won? And so that book is real controversial, but I just hated it. I hated the whole book. I hated every storyline. Not a single one of them panned out in the end and made it like, oh man, that's a good storyline. They were all stupid. They were all pointless. The characters were all pointless and flat. The plot was stupid and aimless and nothing happened in the end. Nothing was really achieved. It's just like you take this subject of the Germans and the Japanese won World War II. Great, that's a fertile ground for stories. And he writes this. It's like the worst possible story he could write, like the just dumbest story. And so I was thinking like, how could they possibly make a TV show out of this? Because it's just stupid. Because the TV show like had images of like New York all covered in swastikas. And I saw like a trailer of like Man in the High Castle end, and you see like the Statue of Liberty being destroyed. But absolutely none of that is in the book. In fact, New York doesn't appear at all in the book. I think it is mentioned once and only mentioned briefly. So New York doesn't appear despite all the images from the TV show promotions. So I read like the synopsis of the first 2 episodes of the TV show, and they are completely different. There is basically a guy named Frank in the book and in the TV show, and he only appears in the 2nd episode, and it's like completely different. Really, they just kept the name of the one guy, and that's the only thing they kept from the book into the TV show. And that just shows you how this book is stupid. You could not make a TV show out of this book being faithful to it. It's just stupid. So for the TV show, they had to completely make up their own story, as they should have, because the story that Philip Dick created was just stupid and didn't go anywhere. And the storylines were all stupid. They didn't pay off. The conflict was stupid. I know I keep using these words, but that's the only thing that comes to mind. The book was just bad. It was terrible. It was a terrible book. So, I would be tempted to give this book 1 star, but the thing is, I did read the whole book. I just stuck it out to the end because people were saying, hey, stick it out to the end. The end is great, which God, I never listen to those people again. No, actually, you know, it's okay because you never know what people are going to like. So some people do like this book and they like the TV show, so more power to them. Usually for a book that I finish, I give it 3 stars because I kind of feel that if you can finish a book, you must have not hated it too much. But that's not really the case with this book. I did pretty much hate the book the whole way through. And the only reason I read it all the way through is because people said, dude, stick around to the ending. The ending is great. And those people. So I'm really just going to give the book 2 stars. It doesn't deserve any more than that. It's really unfortunate. I think it's bad that this is my first book by Philip Dick, so it just lessens my interest in all of his other books, and there are at least 2 other books on the top 1000 list from him that I need to read. So I am pessimistic about that now. In terms of the book itself, I just didn't like anything about it. The writing, the storytelling, the plot, the characters, the characterization, the themes, just nothing at all in the book worked for me. So I didn't like anything whatsoever about the book at any point. I can't draw any positives out of it. The only positive is that it's a great premise. The Germans and Japanese won World War II. Great. But it's written in every worst way possible, so I'm just super unhappy with it. I didn't like it at all. I cannot recommend it. I'm not really interested in watching the TV show either, because I just know since it's not based at all on the book, what's the point? I don't know. Why even keep it with this title? Why honor Philip Dick with this TV series? Why not just completely write your own story and come up with your own title? Why basically allow this guy to sell books off this crappy book? So I would have just completely written a original show and not use the title or characters or anything, because Philip Dick doesn't deserve it. The last thing I want to say is that this book has a lot of mention of like this oracle, and I think it has to do with Taoism, because they mention the Tao a lot, or the way. And I am kind of fond of Taoism myself. I like the Tao Te Ching. It's somewhere right around here. It's right here. So I kind of like Taoism, but everything about the oracle in this book was just so boring. I just hated it, and it was just everything about the book I just hated. So I did not like this book. Have you guys read this book? Have you seen the TV show? What do you think of them? Have you read any other books by Philip Dick? I have talked to several people about his books, and they do like his books, a lot of them. And Man in the High Castle is rarely mentioned as people's favorite books by him. So, I don't know, maybe I just started with the book that is maybe just overhyped and his other books are better. I don't know, that's my hope. Because if this is like his best book, oh my god, I'm in trouble. But his books definitely drop on my to-read list, like to the bottom. So I'm really going to delay those as long as I can. So that is it. I did not like the book. That's unfortunate. But oh well. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.